بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Safina Society Nothing But Facts live stream on a warm Wednesday here. Keep an eye out tomorrow. We're starting the stream very early tomorrow. Tomorrow we're starting at 12 because we got some business to do later on in the day. Let's get straight to our first segment, which is good old Oz. The Wizard of Oz is here, if you don't know who that is. There's so many Osmans and Uthmans in the community that each one of them needs a nickname. And this young man, who I started off in high school, when he was in high school, calling the music producer, because that's what he dressed like one of the really smart person that's behind the scene with really fancy sneakers. I think the sneakers cost more than the rest of the outfit. And then the colored glasses. What didn't you one time have orange glasses, I think? Or his clear glasses, but those stylish glasses. So let's bring him on because he's now no longer a music producer, but he's an app producer, and he's knee deep in the Turath, which is the heritage of Islamic scholarship. Not even knee deep, neck deep. Elifun, bring him on. Assalamu alaikum, Uthman.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for having me.
A couple weeks back, we highlighted your app that you're working on, the Sharh App, and now it's officially on the Apple, the App Store, and I downloaded it, and it's very simple. It just says Sharh, like you can't miss it. Mm-hmm. So why don't you talk to us? Oh, look at this. So it comes in a topic. You got Aqidah, Kalam, Fiqh, Usul. Okay, every book that's there has its topic, and it shows whether you completed it or if it's complete or not. So Oz, take over and tell us about it.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa zid wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam. So back in Ramadan, I came on Sharh, on the NBF podcast to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing for Sharh. And you could think that was kind of like the debut of Sharh to the Muslim world. And since then, we have had an amazing time with, the amount of support that we got following the live stream in Ramadan. The campaign that we did was incredibly successful beyond what I thought was even imaginable. And I said that I'd come back to talk about what the updates were and what we were able to do with that support and, past the launch. So it's been around 4 or 5 months since Ramadan. And since then, because of the support of the community and because of all of the work that everyone was doing, we were able to get so much done in such a short amount of time. And I just wanted to showcase and update the viewers about what we've been up to and what I've been doing on working, and improving Sharh. So the first thing that I want to talk about is actually not even the app. What I want to talk about is some of the material that we've been working on. And I know, Alif, that I did say to you not to show the desktop and just to show the app, but I just remembered that there's actually a lot of material. So if you want to just show sharhapp.com for a little bit, because I kind of want to talk about what have we been translating, what have we been working on since the last time we talked about Sharh. So first things first is that today actually marks a really special day, which is the publication of a work of a translator who is not myself. The first external translator just had their work published on Sharh, and it's none other than a frequent contributor to Safina Society, Naz Hassan. So yesterday we were talking about the website. I was talking to you about the website, and we're discussing the work that Naz has been doing for Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and to talk about what exactly is a Sunni creed. And Naz is a translator. He's an author. He has published books, and he has a website now. And on that website, he talks about a lot of misconceptions about the Sunni creed and the differences between Ahlus Sunnah and the rest of Muslims, or the rest these other sects that are there. And what's the difference, and what is different about us. And he's teaching a class on al-Aqidah al-Tahawiyya, the seminal work that every student of knowledge knows about Imam al-Tahawi. And he did an excellent job in translating the book and easy to understand with very simple commentary, a glossary of terms, and he translated the entirety of the text from the beginning to the end. And I thought that this is the perfect place to showcase some of the work that's being done on Sharh. So I don't know if it's being displayed because I can't see the screen.
We see it here.
And
why don't
so
you put Oz on so we could talk about it? Swap my picture for Oz. Yeah, continue, Oz.
So this is a phenomenal work, and some of the work that is able to be done as a result of the contributions and the support that we got. We're close to a milestone on the website, which is passing 500 members of the website. And we have thousands upon thousands of people who visit the website without making an account. And this is the best way to, open up the community to the rest of the work that's being done by people, by other translators. So Al-Aqidah al-Tahawiyya is where we're starting, but there's a lot of work that has been done beyond Al-Aqidah al-Tahawiyya as well. And if you go back to the home screen, last time, I believe there were only 9 translations that were on the website. And now if you look at it, there's actually 13, and there's even more to follow. So I just want to talk a little bit about what books we've been able to translate. During the month of Dhul Hijjah, I thought that the perfect book to translate would be a book on the rulings of slaughter in the Maliki school. And so there's a book, if you look at it on the right side, it's called Urjuza fi Ilm al-Zakat. And this is a book by Imam Abdurrahman ibn Ali al-Raqi, who is a Maliki scholar who basically wrote a 60 or so line text just going and outlining all of the various opinions on slaughter and the way that slaughter is supposed to be done in the Maliki school. And not only that, what I did for this text is that I also put in some mild commentary, some brief commentary and some brief notes comparing and contrasting some of the things that Imam al-Raqi mentions in his poem to what is the mashhur of the madhab as well. Because one piece of feedback that I got from a lot of people is that these books that you're translating, they're really good, but we can't actually read these texts by ourselves. We need some context. So what I tried focusing on after April was actually providing context and just light footnotes and commentary to help the reader to understand what is the author talking about and to help understand the purpose of the author. So that's one book that we completed in the month of Dhul Hijjah. Another book that we completed was a text called Aqidat al-Ghabrini. And this is a book that a lot of people don't know. And I became aware of this book as a result of another great scholar who's doing a lot of amazing work behind the scenes, Shaykh Abdurrahman Mihrig, who is a big theologian who's doing a lot of work. And he highlighted this work by Imam Qadi Abu Abbas al-Ghabrini. And it's a very obscure text. You're never, ever going to find a translation of this text. Most people, 99.99999% of people don't even know that a text like this exists. But the thing is that he brought our attention to this text, and he said that this is a great example of the type of theological and philosophical work that was being done in North Africa. You are never going to see a book like this hit the shelves. It's just not going to happen because there's no money to be made in printing this type of book because no one's really interested in it beyond students of knowledge.
Question for you: is there, where does it show how many pages the book is?
So in terms of the pages, we have line by line. So you're not going to be able to see the number of pages.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But if you go on the app, you'll be able to see how many total lines there are in the book.
Okay, good. So now, what is different about this specific book, by the way, just as a side note?
So what's different about this book is that Al-Aqidah al-Ghabrini is written by a Maliki scholar from Bijaya. And there's not a lot of work that's done. In fact, in the academic world, there's actually a narrative that exists that says that the North African scholars were not interested. They were not metaphysically interested. I think that's the terminology that they use, that they didn't care and they didn't contribute to the works of theology and philosophy in the way that scholars in Baghdad and Iraq and what's referred to as Ma Wara an-Nahr, the east of the Muslim world, the way that they contributed. And one reason why they have this narrative in play is because they want, they want to create a narrative or a belief that Muslims are not theologically interested, they're not metaphysically interested, and they learned about philosophy from the Persians and from the Indian scholars and the Persian scholars, and they didn't have a mind of their own. Instead, they borrowed these ideas and simply tweaked these ideas to, suit Sunni Islam. And because there's not a lot of theological work that was being done in North Africa, especially in the sub-Saharan areas in North Africa, in West Africa, and so on, it hurts their narrative when they say that there's work that's being done in theology and philosophy and logic and these rational sciences in that part of the world. So not a lot of work is being done. So this text, Al-Aqidah al-Ghabrini, is actually an obscure text, but there's other works out there that people might recognize, like the works of Imam al-Sanusi that a lot of people know of, or Al-Aqidah al-Burhaniyya. And these type of texts are receiving a lot of well-deserved attention. But what we want to show is that there's actually a broader narrative, this broader movement of theology and works of philosophy that are going on in North Africa during this time. So that's one of the benefits. And a book like this was never going to be published in print, just because who's going to read it? It was obscure even in the time that it was written. But with a project like Sharh, we actually bring it to the Muslim world's fingertips and give access to people who would never even have heard of a place in North Africa called Bijaya to begin with. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to highlight these little pockets of knowledge that are everywhere in the Muslim world to help them understand how rich and vast our tradition is. Mm-hmm. Then the last book, this is al-Barahin, if you go back to the homepage. And inshallah, I'm trying to get this to be published as a bundle of al-Barahin. There are another 2 works by Imam al-Sanusi. al-Barahin is a little bit more well-known, but for the reader or for the student who hasn't heard of it, al-Barahin is one of the most commentated and most taught books in Aqidah that there is in Islamic history. And it's a book written by Imam al-Sanusi, who maybe 10 years ago, no one really knew who Imam al-Sanusi was. But alhamdulillah, what we're seeing is that a lot of people are reviving the Sanusi tradition and the approach that Imam al-Sanusi took because of how simple and succinct his works were. So that's the work that Imam al-Sanusi, so that's one of the works that we're doing. And the reason why I translated this book is because I was teaching it on ArcView for the Aqidah Essentials class. So I started teaching it there.
Tell me, some of them I see that it says commentary. So is that just a specific explanation of terms, or is it a specific commentary that's also translated?
So it depends from one book to another. Some books don't require too much commentary, or also the commentary is still in progress. Other books are, they require more explanation and more refinement. So more commentary is given. But unless otherwise stated, so for example, the text on slaughter, Urjuza fi ilm al-zakat, that commentary is taken from the reliable sources of the Maliki school, but I adapted it and put it into my own words. But other works that I've been working on, for example, a commentary of Jawharat al-Tawheed, is going to be a translation of a prominent commentary on the book. So even the commentary will be a translation of that book.
What if someone's out there that has translations and wants to put them on your app and says, hey, I just got this translation sitting here? And what if, that's the first question. And number 2, what if he only has a chapter?
They can start. The way that we do it right now is that anyone can make an account on the website, start their translations. And once you're near complete, then you basically just let us know. And there's an approval process where we'll edit your text and see, does it meet the, the criteria and the standards to be displayed on the front page. And if it does, then you will be able to display your text to thousands of viewers a month. That every month we're getting around 20,000 hits to the website. And it's growing, especially with the app that we just launched, which we'll talk about in a second.
Amazing. Okay, let's get to the app, because I'm very curious, and I'm sure you're going to get to this, on the listen feature that I'm looking at here. Any chance to put photos of the app, screenshots of the app up here? And I like the grid format, by the way. the app can be on list or grid. I personally like the grid format, and I'm really curious what you have to say about the listen format.
So the listen feature. So one really difficult challenge that I had was that a lot of the feedback that got to me about Sharh is that people were like, we really like this project, but we don't really like, no one reads anymore. It's really difficult nowadays to find a reader. And people, they said that this project is great, but what exactly is the practical benefit of an app like this, or a project like this? That is it just an academic project, or is it meant to benefit the everyday Muslim? And I thought to myself, and I, thought about what the purpose is and what the purpose of all of this work that we do in the field of da'wah and the field of ilm. And it's all about bringing practical benefit to the everyday Muslim. It's about one step at a time. Someone should be leveling up in their knowledge, even, because we can't really be basic Muslims anymore. We don't live in that time where there's this jama'ah, the walls of the fortress are high, the invaders are outside of the boundaries of Islam, and these deviant ideas and these shubuhat, right, these confusing matters are outside, so we don't have to worry about them. I could just be like the regular Muslim, right, your average everyday Muslim, and I'll be fine. We don't live in that world anymore. And that's a really big issue that we need to talk about more and more. That how do we solve this type of issue? So when I thought about that, and then I thought about what Sharh was all about, the idea was to bring the Islamic tradition to your fingertips. And most people these days, a lot of people don't even have a laptop or a computer anymore, right? They just have a phone. And so even though the website was really nice, what I thought was what we need to do is we need to elevate the experience. We need to make it even more accessible. So the first thing was to create an app, and the actual app got created just 2 weeks ago. It's a long approval process because Apple really curates their experience. For example, the app is not available in mainland China because China doesn't actually allow any magazines or books unless you get a permit from the CCP. So I wasn't about to go through that entire process. So even though they initially approved my app, they came back and they said that your app is not, upon further review, you're not actually allowed to publish your app because it's religious material, and that's banned in the CCP without a permit. So after the approval process, once you have the app, actually my wife, she suggested that people don't really, read books anymore. So why don't you just give them a feature to let them listen? And in the past, that would be a very monumental task because you'd have to hire voice actors, and you'd have to, or readers, and you'd have to do a whole bunch of different stuff in order to actually be able to do that. Now, with the advent of AI, right? And last time I came on the podcast, I mentioned that I'm not really there. I don't really think that AI is completely there to be able to translate these books. But what AI is really good at is taking material and, for example, audio for the material, and actually just narrating and turning text to speech. So using the most cutting edge text to speech models that are out there, what we're able to do now is that for every book that's on the app, you can actually listen to the book. So that is a complete game changer. Because before, in English, in Arabic, and the notes as well. So I don't know if I can't see the screen, but there is a demonstration of the audio.
Yeah, here we go. You and the audio are on the screen now.
Okay.
All right, let's hear this, Adif.
أقسام مقتضاه بالحصر تماز وهي الوجوب والاستحالة الجواز. The categories related to it, the rational judgment, are clearly confined. They are necessity, impossibility, and possibility. Imam al-Sanusi further elaborated on these, defining them as necessary is that whose non-existence cannot be conceptualized by the mind, either instinctively, like the spatiality of bodies, or after inference, such as the necessity of pre-eternality for Allah. It cannot be conceptualized by the mind, either instinctively, like a body being simultaneously free from motion and stillness, or after inference, such as a partner for Allah. possible is that whose presence and absence can be conceptualized by the mind, either instinctively, like motion for us, or after inference, such as the pun.
So that's great. And okay, so this to benefit from this, you're going to need to sign up, though, correct?
So there is a trial period. So anyone can sign up. You could just, if you have a iPhone, you could just sign up. And you could try it out for a week. Or if you get the annual membership, then you have a month to see if you like it and to see if you benefit. And every single day or every single week, basically, there's more publications that are coming out. There's more work that's being done line by line, word by word. We're increasing the library at any time. So as time goes by, your membership becomes more and more valuable. So you actually want to get in right now before, right now we have this introductory price of, it's just $5, right? It's less than a cup of coffee now. So we wanted to,
but later it's going to be more.
yeah, because as your library increases and as the costs and everything like that, they increase, then that's usually why these subscription prices go up. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to make it accessible to people. That if you actually find benefit in it, then what we're doing right now is once the audio is there, if someone has ever gone and used Khan Academy, they actually have this type of curriculum map where you have like a subject and then it says like start here. Then once you start here, then it'll give you 2 branching paths, for example. The next thing that you could do is listen to this material, or you can watch these lecture videos. And so we're employing something like that so that every single day you log in and you listen to 5-10 minutes, and it's perfect for, say a daily commute if you're going to work or you're going to school or something like that. And for 10-15 minutes a day, you listen to a book, and every week you could finish a new book. And since we're, improving and increasing the library every week, then there's always going to be new material. And someone who never even thought about being knowledgeable about anything in Islam can become incredibly knowledgeable and well informed just by listening. The same way that you listen to music or you listen to NPR on the way to work or something like that, or you listen to a podcast, you just passively put this on and you put it on your headphones, or on your way to work or while you're cooking or something like that, and you learn about subjects that you might not even have known even exist. So for example, someone might not even know that there's a topic in the Islamic sciences called logic or mantiq.
Yeah.
And let alone what is it? What's it all about? And because we have these obscure texts that are being released and they're very applicable, in a matter of a couple of weeks, you might finish an entire curriculum and at least have heard a book, its translation, and some notes on the entire curriculum of logic that scholars are studying.
So I have a question. When you listen to it, you can also play selectively.
Yes.
Arabic, English, commentary. So I could say, let's say I don't speak any Arabic. I could say English and commentary.
Yes.
Right? That's great. So it's also a great way to test your Arabic.
Yeah.
By reading or listening to the Arabic, then waiting, then clicking for the commentary.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
see if or the translation, and see if you understood.
Exactly. There's
really
so many different possibilities on how you can use the app and how you can benefit from it. And it's incredibly flexible. So, and we're working on improving it. Every single day I'm working on this app little by little to make it better. So this is just version 1.1 of the app. But pretty soon, once you download it, you're going to see updates on the app that enhance your experience. Of course, any new release that you have, it's going to have some minor hiccups and bugs and things like that, and those are all being worked out. And the experience is like the entire purpose of all of this is, again, to bring knowledge down to the regular Muslim. That nowadays people, they have a lot of knowledge about other parts of other things, other domains. And the average person in America, the average Muslim in America, is likely somewhere between high school educated and college educated. If you have that type of knowledge and you have 15 minutes every single day, then why are you not using that time to level up your Islamic knowledge?
Yeah.
You're leveling up your knowledge about everything else in the world, right? But why not level up your knowledge in the same way about Islam? And we see that there's an explosion of resources that are out there to help you do that. whether you're looking for scholarly resources, like this idea, this project called Shamila, that every scholar knows about Shamila here in the West and in the Arab world. Everyone knows about it, even though the common Muslim doesn't really know about it. But it's really incredible if you stop and think for a second that conceivably every text, every popular text in the Muslim tradition, or as many as could be popularly found, were taken and put into one library and accessible for free to everyone from a simple website.
Yeah.
Then, there's other things that are out there as well. Like there's so many free and online classes that are available. The best one, of course, being ArcView, and other things that are available that can help you actually learn these texts and learn these sciences with scholars. And then now what we're seeing is these supplementary apps. Again, Sharh is not meant to be a substitute for a teacher or for a class, but it's meant to passively increase your knowledge. And we're seeing other apps and other resources in that domain. For example, Usul.ai is doing some really great work as well, and how they can leverage AI in a reliable way. We're integrating AI into Sharh as well to create this explosion of knowledge. And if you're not taking advantage of this golden age of access to Islamic resources, then you're really missing out on what you can actually accomplish.
And I'm wondering, it's interesting how the Muslims are adapting to every situation. And they're adapted because they really believe in it. And I'm wondering, in the past, how many tech revolutions or other kinds of revolutions have totally killed certain ideologies, beliefs, or religions. Right. Shown that a lot of these things are completely false. And they only rely upon, for example, maybe a trend, a government funding, something like that.
Right. I think, for the entirety of Muslim history, until very recently, Muslims were always ahead of the trends. Mm-hmm. And they were very bold in their academic pursuits, especially in technology, because they knew they have this real yaqeen that no matter what we do, whatever we discover about the physical world, whatever methodology we come up with, it's not going to challenge our faiths, as opposed to Catholicism and the church, which heavily moderated and regulated scientific discovery. And because they knew that this religion of ours doesn't really make a lot of sense here. Yeah. And I think that's how Muslims have been, Allahu A'lam, but that's how Muslims have been at the forefront of technology, except for one thing, which was the printing press, which and I'm not an expert in history, but from what I understand, that Muslims were late to the punch when it came to the printing press, and they had their own reasonings on why they didn't want to mass print books. And I think one of those reasons is because once these texts were readily accessible and available, then there was too much information for people to work with. But then they came, Muslims later on adapted to the printing press. And I think that especially now, there's this idea among Muslims that we see that we don't ever want to be late to something again. Because it seems, Allahu Alam, it seems as if not implementing the printing press was a mistake, right? Because of the fact that while the rest of the world or the rest of other civilizations and other societies, they moved on with the printing press, we were a little bit later in printing our books and disseminating them and whatnot. And as a result of that, when colonization occurred, that it was very easy to burn and to lose manuscripts and to burn books and to stop the spread and the advent of knowledge. Now, though, we're in this revolution, this technological revolution. First, there was the internet. And you see that the manhaj of scholars, for the most part, is to be on wherever the people are, to meet them on that platform, which is something that I know that you mentioned a lot from Habib Omar, which is that whatever social media there is, whatever channel there is, whatever outlet that there is, that it's actually our responsibility as callers to Allah and callers to the Prophet ﷺ to be on that platform, to be on that channel, so that we can reach people wherever they are. So if people are on Instagram, we're on Instagram. If people are on TikTok, we're on TikTok. And we avoid the harm and we take the good in it. And the same thing goes for what's happening in the world today, that we use technology, and if AI can be of benefit to us, then we use it as a tool. We don't let it use us instead.
I like that. The concept of bringing all knowledge up to the forefront and all information, all facts, and let everyone contribute, that is actually something that should scare liars and people who are hoodwinking everyone and people who are scamming everyone. And it should actually give, it should be inviting and should make happy people who believe in clear-cut truths, because clear-cut truths that are not spun, they're not someone's made-up ideas, they're going to rise to the top. And they may not rise to the top eventually, or immediately, but they will rise to the top eventually. And one of the important, so it's not only that things are true, but it's also that they're relevant to people. There's a lot of truths out there that are irrelevant to people, and hence they get lost in all the haystack. But when what we see is continually, people continue to be interested in Islam, and they continue to learn Islam. They continue to study Islam, and it's spreading from continent to continent. And these types of initiatives, I mean, this we need to put this on all of our websites and spread it so that people could slowly learn little by little. And that's actually, this is the information age will be another proof for Islam, because it's going to kill so many fake ideas and false ideas. And irrelevant ideas will simply be lost and they'll go by the wayside because nobody cares about them. It's not enough to be true. You have to be compelling enough for people to care. And those are the two things that we keep seeing over time in Islam, is that not only is it true, it's compelling and people are interested in it and it's solving people's problems. So knowledge, now somebody asked me this question the other day, interestingly. It's important about knowledge. Why can't I read the Quran and just take it and go? Why do I need this scholarship that you guys keep talking about? So the answer I gave them, I'm going to give Uthman a chance to answer too, so you can think about that. But the answer I gave them was that demonstrable knowledge, science, tech, does not need you to go back to the previous era of whatever tech people and learn from them. It's not necessary. But no, Edif, just put one of them, one per time, one at a time, so you can remove them. Okay. So it doesn't need that. Rational knowledge does not need it either. I don't need to go to a teacher. As long as I know what the digits are, I could do math myself. I don't need anybody to figure out arithmetic. But transmitted knowledge, this is what we're talking about here. This is what Uthman is talking about. Transmitted knowledge, by definition, requires transmission. It requires me to go back and see what is being transmitted here. Okay. And that's exactly why we're a people of the connected chain. And we try to connect the chain in any way, shape, and form. So, Uthman, how would you have answered that kind of question when people say, oh, the relevance of knowledge? Why do we have to go back to scholarship?
I think that there's a lot of answers to this, but what immediately came in mind was the ayah of the Quran, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. So the meaning of that ayah is that it's a question, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not ponder or contemplate the Quran? And if it were from anyone other than Allah, then they would have found in it اختلافا كثيرا, a lot of differences. And the ulama, they talk a lot about what are these ikhtilafat, what are these differences that are being referred to here. And they mentioned that this verse here is actually a proof for the miraculous nature of the Quran. That any type of text that we have, any type of speech that exists, it has a context to the speech. And by human nature, the way that things work is that when we're speaking in a language, that there's contradictions that may occur in the language, or there's multiple meanings that can be carried by a single word. And in order for us to understand, what do I mean? I'm trying to think of an example here. The easiest examples, would be something like if I say, like, let's go with the classic, like something like if I say the word hand, the hand could have multiple meanings. The one that comes to mind initially is the meaning of a physical hand. But hand can also mean power, right? When you say that, the hand of the king, for example, it could mean like a person of authority. It could mean power. It could mean all these different things. And if the Quran was from another source, from someone other than Allah, meaning it was a creation of a human being, we'd find in it a lot of contradictions, because in one place it's a 600 and so page book, and if it was anyone else, then we'd find contradictions, we'd find inconsistencies, inadequacies, and so on and so forth. But for the Quran, how is it possible that the entire Quran is internally consistent? And this is one of the proofs for the veracity, for the truthfulness of the Quran, and from the fact that it's from God. And the way that language works in general, no matter if you're a rational individual, you know how language works. You know that there's certain statements that we make that are qat'i, right? That they are absolute. And there's no other meaning that a word can take in a particular context other than that word. Then there's certain words that we're 90% sure that the word means such and such thing, but there's a possibility that it could mean something else. For example, when I use the word lion, right? 90% of the time when we use the word lion, what we mean is a physical lion. But 10% of the time we're using it as a metaphor to describe someone's bravery, for example. And then, for example, there's words that we actually don't know what that word means unless we have external context clues. An example of this is the word quru, right? Period in Arabic. And period could either mean a period of purity, right? Or it could mean a period of impurity when it comes to a woman on her menstrual cycle. And this word, and now there's debate of what does it mean? And the only way that you can surmise, everyone can figure out what is absolute, right? The ayahs of the Quran that are absolute, right? They don't require a lot of thinking. For example, no one is going to read the Quran and come out of reading the Quran and believe that there's more than one God, or that prayer is anything but obligatory. It's stated so many times. Or the fact that Allah has attributes of He's all-seeing, all-hearing, all-knowing. But there's other things in the Quran, and there's other things in our scholarship that they really require expertise, either expertise of language itself, of the Arabic language, or expertise of the context, that you need to know what were the circumstances in which the verse was revealed. And how are you going to know that? I can't just open up the Quran and figure that out by myself. I have to ask the people who are there, and if they're not there, then I have to find the historical record. And the only way that I know that is through hadiths and chains of narrations that help me understand the circumstances. And there's so much more to say about this, but I think that's one example.
I think another example is that the ikhtilaf can be with the world. And the more we learn about the world, any ancient document that purports to have or know something about the world, right? The more we learn about the world, chances are that document or that theory will have been proven false.
Right.
And so the Bible suffered from this way back in the day, right, with Galileo and them and Copernicus. And that never happened in Islam. It never happened in with the Quran. It never happened. Two things that never happened is why we are on a different trajectory than Europe. We never had an issue and discovered that, hold on, the book is actually wrong, right, on how it describes the world. And that's so important. We never had a bifurcation between science and faith and religion. And the second thing is that we never discovered that our church was lying to us the whole time and was scamming us the whole time. It's because we didn't have a church in the first place. So those are the two important things. So the ikhtilaf that you speak about in this verse is not just internal contradictions, but it's also external contradictions. The more we're discovering so much about science, that turned out to, or about the world, demonstrable knowledge, that actually ended up being a proof for the Quran, if anything.
Right. And I think that this is a sign of the truth of Islam and the truth of the revelation. Because one thing is that any religion that exists, any ideology that exists, in order for it to be a proper worldview, a proper religion, it needs to have explanatory power.
Yeah.
So, and this is really important, actually, because when we look at what human beings, they naturally have this process of asking questions. I want to know how the world works. And if you're a human being and you have an intellect, you're going to be using your faculties to try to understand where the world comes from and these type of questions. Yeah. And so you have the emergence of these different religions and these ideologies that exist. And Christianity, Buddhism, they have to answer questions about really two things. The first one is, where does the world come from? And the second one is, where do we come from? Mm-hmm. And then after that, there's all these ethical questions and whatnot, which are branches of these larger theological questions or metaphysical questions that are there. And if you're not the truth, right, there's no middle ground between truth and falsehood. You're either falsehood or you're truth. And, if you're falsehood and you're trying to answer these type of questions, along the way, you're going to trip up and you're going to make a mistake. And people are going to catch on to that mistake. And this is from Allah Ta'ala, that Allah Ta'ala has made it so that His deen and His religion and guidance and revelation and the nur of truth is eventually going to unveil and make known what was previously concealed of when it came to these false ideologies. And so that's what we see, that the Quran, it's a furqan, and it's a differentiator between truth and falsehood, because it's conceivable that that these ideas, they could never be falsifiable. But why is it that every ideology, including science and this belief in this empirical world, it has aberrations and it has these inconsistencies that exist within their own frameworks? There's never a complete internal consistency except in Islam, that people have tried. And you see this from atheists and you see this from ex-Muslims, that they mention how resilient Islam is, mm-hmm. and how resilient the message is to changes, and how resilient it is to any type of modern, quote unquote, modernization or progressivism. Because what they're really trying to say in their frustration is that because it's the truth, it doesn't need to change, right? As opposed to everything else.
Yeah. And when you talk about this in terms of what religions need to do, they also need to solve problems. Any worldview, it needs to solve problems and not create more problems. And it needs to be able to be predictive. It needs to give you a predictive model. Okay? If you look in the Quran, there's all sorts of what we would today call predictive modeling. Okay? In other words, the arrogant will always fall. Okay? The humble will always the oppressed will inherit the earth if they're patient through their oppression. Yeah. These are predictive models, and the most important prediction needed is the prediction of what happens after you die. If you think about it, that's the one thing that at this point we can't technically test, although Muslims it is ubiquitous amongst in our communities that people visit one another in dreams after they die. It's not related to like super pious people. It's pretty common. But let's just say in this world itself, you need a predictive model that if you behave like this, these bad things are going to happen. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, zina spreads, disease spreads. Like they're both going to go at the same rate. If interest spread, slavery spreads, because Allah calls them arbab, تتخذوا بعضكم بعضا أربابا من دون الله. And the riba, it causes a society to separate so drastically that you will eventually be so distinct, the super rich and the poor, that they will just enslave the poor. And we're seeing that slowly happen in the world today. So the predictive modeling is a very clever or very important aspect to any worldview. Like, does it help you understand what's going to happen if you do certain different behaviors?
Absolutely. I think that's the other thing that, let's use an example of let's use a case study. For example, in Islamic history, past the first few generations of Islam, there was the increase in all of these heretical groups that were out there. And you ask yourself that, there's all these different groups. You have the Qadariyya, the Jabariyya, the Jahmiyya, and the Mu'tazila. And some of them were incredibly formidable. Mm-hmm. For example, the Mu'tazila were in positions of power, they had political influence, and yet they essentially died out, except in books. Mm-hmm. And for example, another very formidable group when it came to their intellectual prowess was the Falaasifa, right? Mm-hmm. For example, Ibn Sina, the younger Ibn Rushd and others, especially Ibn Sina. And the thing is that one might ask that why did they never really catch on? Why do we not have a Falaasifa sect today, and a country ruled by the Falaasifa sect of Islam? Why is it that only a few really kind of survived? And
they survived, and in a very limited capacity.
Exactly. And the first things foremost, this is what Imam al-Tahawi mentions, right? That this is from one of the miracles of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. That this term Ahlus Sunnah is not a term that was revealed. It's from the nusus, it's from the text, but it's not like the Prophet ﷺ referred to us as Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. This is actually a term that came on later. And the reason why is because of the fact that the common people, right? The Prophet ﷺ told us that the common people, or the Jama'ah, the majority of Muslims and the majority of Sunni scholars, or the majority of, they're going to be the ones who are guided. And whereas when you have the Falaasifa and the Mu'tazila, they had their intellect. There's no doubt that they had intellectual, they were uqala, as we refer to them, people of intellect, people of knowledge. And someone like Ibn Sina, he basically wrote the book on logic. Literally, he wrote the book on logic. But why did he not survive? Because of the fact that, okay, peripatetic philosophy, this idea is really nice, right? This Neoplatonic, model that you have for how the world came into existence and whatnot. But how am I going to act on this? It's very pretty in nature,
Yep.
Sounds very nice, even though nowadays, for example, with modern technology or even a telescope or binoculars, you could figure out that the model that the peripatetic philosophers like Ibn Sina was not true, because their whole thing is that these are spherical objects, right? That the moon is a spherical object, and a lot of their philosophy is built on just this idea. If I have binoculars, I can look at the moon and say, no, that's not spherical, right? It's actually a little bit like it's an oval. But my point being, right, is that there's nothing to act upon. Yeah. If I become from the Jabariya, and just to kind of tie this back into the Sharh App, in Al-Muqaddimat, one of the books that I translated and put on the Sharh App, Imam al-Sanusi talks about the different groups. And one of them is Al-Jabariya, and they believe that all actions are from, they're created by God, by Allah Ta'ala, and there's no aspect of the human will at all, not from the perspective of acquisition of the action or ownership of the action, essentially that we're a leaf in the wind or puppets on a string. Once I have that ideology, let's say that I have that ideology, I'm even in political power, so on and so forth. How can an average person actually act on that belief? How can there's no ethics that can do. There's nothing to do. And the same thing for the opposite direction as well. So that's another component to when you have a religion, when you have an ideology, how can I actually put that into?
Yeah. Let me extend to that. Let's hypothetically say that box is checked off. Now you need another box to be checked off. And this is like the most base one. Does it make you happy? That's part of that also has to be checked off, right? Yes. So you need a mode of action, and that's, subhanAllah, I was thinking about the Sunnah and how scholars would say the Sunnah is is the solution, right? And I used to think, how is like using a miswak or using my right hand, how is that a solution, right, to the world's problems? And over the years, you start realizing the ingenious nature of Allah's revelation to the Prophet, peace be upon him, is that you need buy-in from people, and you need to be sticky, and you need to make people happy. So it's not just give us a solution like the way Marxists would operate. We need a solution to this. Okay, but you're not practical. You can't get buy-in from a 10-year-old. But if we got rings, if we got miswaks, if we're learning right hand from left, and eat with your right, clean with your left, walk in the bathroom with your right, not your left, right? Or sorry, walk in the bathroom with your left, not your right. And all these little tiny sunan, you just got buy-in to a 10-year-old. And now he's got something to do. Islam has a relevance to him. Later in life, now you have someone to talk to. Whereas, as you said, these other ideas, Marxism, the peripatetic philosophers, all these, you're only literally only talking to such a thin razor percentage of the society. And the regular people, youth, kids, you never even got them. You never even got their attention. And so the religion's got to make you happy too. And that's where spirituality comes into play. Philosophers fail miserably at making you happy.
Right.
Marxists fail miserably at making
In fact,
you
they bum you out. They
actually
make you
bum
more
out,
depressed.
totally. They make you more depressed. They talk in such a way to make you think that you're stupid. And most times I want to tell people, you're actually not. They're actually mostly manic. A lot of these guys, they actually have mental issues. And that's why they're writing this way. You're going to tell me that, what's that French dude's name?
Foucault.
You're going to tell me that Foucault was not mentally ill? That he didn't have
incredibly sexually deviant as well.
Incredibly deviant.
I just saw on Twitter today that it's widely speculated Foucault used to go to Tunisia all the time. This is during the colonial, I think that Tunisia was still under colonial rule at the time. So, and he went all the time, and people speculated, including firsthand, like eyewitness encounters from someone who said that the reason why Foucault would go there is because it was very easy to have prey on young men, young boys, and to kidnap them and to do whatever you wanted to them. And there's no rule of law that was protecting these people. So, and you see this is very, very common, that with all these philosophers, you see that it's almost like a sunnah with them, that they become incredibly deviant in their beliefs and their ideas.
And there's a book called Philosophers Behaving Badly, right? It's a play on some show or something, but Philosophers Behaving Badly, it's a book. And it shows that there's like the top philosophers, they're all deviants. There it is. Elif got it. It's a 2004 book by Nigel Raj. Open the wiki for that. But the point being is that religion has got to give you something to do. It's got to be able to predict the future, give you an explanation for your past. And also, it's got to make you happy. And spirituality is what does that. And a religion in which there is no happiness in it, it would be a failed religion. You won't transmit it to the next generation, right?
I think what you've inadvertently described is basically the three things that Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam came with, right? The first thing was iman, that it has to make sense. And it has to explain the world around you. Then the next thing is that how do we actually act? It has to be able to, you have to be able to actually, put something into action. And then the third thing is that it's not enough, right? And civilizations have risen and fallen because of the fact that they don't have that third thing, which is this path to felicity, sa'ada. That's what tasawwuf is going to give you. That tasawwuf and ihsan is going to actually show you what you're doing and give you that motivation, and it's going to make you happy.
If we made the archetypes into intellectuals, philosophers, engineers, and junkies, right? Or let's say people who want thrills, thrill seekers, let's put it that way. Junkie's a bad word, right? But you got your thinkers, you got your engineers who are the practical leaders and policymakers for real life. And then you got your thrill seekers. We could tell you which one right now, left alone, was going to go to the Sufi circles.
Yeah.
The thrill seeker, because it makes you feel great.
Yeah.
Then the intellectual is going to go to Aqidah and Kalam and answer those questions. Then your engineer is going to go to fiqh, right?
Yeah.
And it's only sunnah and sharia that balances all these and puts them. Otherwise, you have a society that's all messed up, right? And you need to be balanced across all three. So let's pull it back to the Sharh App, although we sort of went on our own discussion. But the reason I went into that discussion, so the importance of knowledge. Like, we're a religion of knowledge. And it's not sufficient, as Uthman said earlier, to be a common Muslim. Me and Imran came from a time where I remember very well, if somebody had attended a month intensive in the summertime, they were set for life. Like, you felt like they're okay for life. That's not the case anymore. Yeah. You're going to get so many questions that are going to come up in life, and we in Islam, we encourage it. Islam encourages that. Ask all you want. Look at the world all you want. inquiry, rational and scientific inquiry, will only strengthen the Quran and people's attachment to the Quran and the religion in general. So again, go to Sharh App and sign up and get it. It's free. And then you'll, if you want other features, of course, you pay. And Uthman is a great businessman. So he actually is a businessman, believe it or not. His entire wedding roasts were all his former employees, basically, which are also his buddies. Okay. That was, by the way, your wedding was one of the best roasts, those three guys, when they went up there.
Yeah.
Right. That was one of the best in all weddings. And your previous appearance, I think you talk about the Sharh App twice, right?
Yeah, this is my second time.
This is the second time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So we'll look forward to the third breakthrough. And inshallah, I really like how simple the app looks. And inshallah, may Allah give you a lot of success in this.
I mean, inshallah, I just want to say that the app is available on the App Store. I'll send a link, I guess, to Elif, or Elif, if you could find it on the App Store, I'll send it over to you so you could download it. People are asking when's it available on Android. Mm-hmm. So first of all, why are you on an Android? Yeah. But if you are, inshallah, I'm just kidding. But inshallah, it should be coming on Android pretty soon. So we're still working on that. And there's a lot of updates and a lot of books, a lot of translations that we're working on. And we're trying to really make the experience something that is bite-sized, and yet at the same time, we don't compromise. Yeah. So this is really big, that on one hand, you can make an app, you can make an initiative, but how do you ensure that you don't compromise on your core principles? And we know what our core principles are. And we spent a lot of time talking about our core principles on this live stream in Safina Society and Darafet. And how do we ensure that on one hand, we give people the experience that they need, and we bring Islam down to the common individual, and at the same time, we don't water anything down. So what we try focusing on in this app is both, that we don't want to water anything down, and we want to give the tradition the right and the respect that it deserves, while at the same time making it bite-sized, right? Making it easy to access, make it the different mediums, the different learning types, make everyone have an access and have a portion of it. Because the more that you get access to, the more that you imbibe, the more of the prophetic inheritance that you're imbibing as well, right? Because this is what the Prophet ﷺ gave us, this prophetic inheritance of knowledge. And you really want it, that if, say, for example, someone died and they were incredibly rich, you had a family member who you never even talked to, but they're your distant uncle or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there was a chance, there was even a small chance that he was going to leave you something in his will, or something would happen. We know how the Islamic inheritance laws work. And there's a chance that you might be someone that might get some money. Even if it was $1,000 or $2,000, I guarantee you that you're going to go to that funeral and you're going to get that inheritance. Yep. Why is it then that when the greatest of creation, right, the greatest of creation from mankind and all of creation in general, when the Prophet ﷺ told us that he doesn't leave behind, the ulama, the prophets, they don't leave behind dirhams and dananir, right? They don't leave these behind. They don't leave behind money. They leave behind knowledge. Yeah. Then it would only make sense that we would go and reach and seek out that inheritance of ours, because we're entitled to it, right? That's what it's showing, that we're entitled to that knowledge. So why not seek it out? And it doesn't really make a lot of sense that if you have this time in the day, that why are you not using a little bit of that time to learn and inform yourself about the religion and increase in your rank?
Not only that, I'm telling you, we're talking this day and age, and you're going to give some knowledge. If you don't have an app with a searchable keyword, just go home, because you're only going to sell your stuff to a couple specialists. No problem. That's fine. But if you truly want a translation revolution, if you truly want to get to a lot of people, the search bar, the ability to keyword and search and get it in a text. I don't want any opinion. I want the text of a scholar. I want his opinion. Right? That's the way to go. Searchable. When I saw on the app, it's got searchable by keyword. That's the key. So
Yeah.
not only can I search the text later on because it's right now it's 13 texts, but in the future, I want to be able to search the subject matter. And let's say, give me one subject. Let's say angels, right? I want to see what the Aqidah books say about angels or whatever. So whatever subjects. Or traveler's prayer, right? Traveler's prayer going to come up. So, yeah, by issue, right? So idda period, waiting period. I want to look up the waiting. Let's actually do an experiment. Waiting period.
I don't think there's anything, but you'll probably find things for angels and whatnot.
Or what if I write idda? No, not yet. Okay. So angels has a lot of things. So, but point being, you get my point.
Yeah.
And not only when I search, it's got to give me the basic blurb of what I searched for, so I know if this is worth what I'm looking for to click on it or not. That's just how the world works. Whether we like it or not, that's how the world works, right? So thank you for coming on, and we look forward to more developments on the Sharh app, and Allah give you success.
Jazakumullah khair.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's always a pleasure.
Likewise. Jazakallahu khairan.
Assalamu
Alaikum salam. Elif, now I'm going to read this overview on philosophers behaving badly. So put that back up there. Just put the cover because it's a neat looking cover, right? Nigel Rogers and Mel Thompson wrote a different kind of book, which is the thesis is that works and teachings of great philosophers cannot and should not be separated from their personal lives. Thank you. Anyone who's going to tell us how to live, proclaim that you know something that we don't know, okay? And that nobody else knows. Let's get it even blackness on left and right. There you go. Adif is getting really good at computers, at software. We agree with this. If you're going to tell us how to live, well, how do you live, right? If you're going to tell us about reality, I need to know first you're not on drugs, as half these guys were. That's his thesis of this author. The author gives as evidence numerous examples from the lives of 8 great philosophers: Rousseau, Schopenhauer, did I say that right? Nietzsche, how do they say it in German? I don't know. Nietzsche. Bertrand Russell, Wittgenstein, Heidegger, Sartre, and Foucault. Okay. They emphasize, however, that their findings do not invalidate the thought of the philosophers concerned, but shed new light on an old subject. They show how the works of philosophers relate to their experiences as men. Of all the eight translations, the German title "Philosophers Like Us, Great Thinkers Considered as Human Beings" probably captures the most accurate intention of the authors. And that's it? No, I need a synopsis. What is this? Okay, we need the juicy details. That's why we're here. So, for example, Rousseau succeeded in setting out the principles of society, democracy, education, and humanity. All right, let's see how you lived. He treated people terribly, it says, particularly women, even those who showed him kindness for many years, of whom there were several. He dealt with the people closest to him as if their sole reason for existence was to serve him and stroke his massive ego. If alive today, he would come perilously close to being diagnosed as a sociopath. I'm reading now from philosophynow.org. I mean, these are their shiyukh, so they're going to be the most fair about it, right? Rousseau's life was a disaster of massive contradictions and inconsistencies. Praising conjugal love, he never properly married, but displayed a callous neglect of Therese, his lifelong partner. Adoring children, he readily abandoned his own, right? Believing that intellectual hatreds were the worst. He engaged in endless battles of ideas, deploring the advent of the printing press. He was a prolific writer, a hater of privilege and wealth, and he always relied on the rich and the great for support. So he's a beggar at the end of the day, right? That's Rousseau. Because I was just talking to a brother. I'm talking to one of our locals. And we are agreeing that most stuff is a bunch of BS. All that matters in Islam is the family units in the community, are they well put together? Okay. Is actual sound and true knowledge being practical, beneficial knowledge being displayed, given to the people? And what are the communities and the masajid like? Literally very few other things matter, because if those things are right, then whoever comes out of a strong family and community, you can't just be family by yourself, and you can't be, you can't even be community without family. Whoever comes out of that will become immune to the nonsense they see in school or on the internet, right? So like literally that's all that matters. Arthur Schopenhauer developed a profound awareness of the extent to which our understanding shapes our experience. He rediscovered and championed the philosophies of the East, specifically Hinduism and Buddhism. This helped energize Western thought, the one in dire need of it. He presented a cogent and influential analysis of the way in which we relate to our world. Yet Schopenhauer was continually sunk into a pessimism that today would be diagnosed as bipolar disease. They're all nuts. His depression, I'm sorry to say that because bipolar is not something that we should mimic, but I'm just saying in this case, it's going to get worse. That's why I'm saying that, right? Okay. Not to say that bipolar is not an actual illness that people may suffer that should be respected, but this guy was something else. He had constant depression, self-loathing. He had multiple phobias. He had paranoia. And he had extreme political beliefs, misanthropy, and misogyny. Schopenhauer never married, had no affairs of women of his own class. I don't even know what that means. And was incapable of, what do you mean, like there's lower class and upper class that he had affairs with? And was incapable of establishing any normal relationship with a woman. Yet he was ready to exploit maids, and that's what he means, maids and other women in lesser roles who would gratify his base desires. The origin of Schopenhauer's personality traits, as with all of us, was in his childhood and youth, which was traumatic. Allegedly, everyone who acts crazy says, oh, my childhood was traumatic. What's the proof of that? You're the only witness to that. I don't always buy it, to be honest with you, because it's like an out. No, the problem is that it's true. There are a lot of people who have a lot of traumatic lives, but this issue here, when you're acting up and you say, oh, I had a traumatic childhood, it's like a way out. But he says he had a trauma, and it could be. His father was wealthy, cosmopolitan, cultured, but he was a very gloomy man. He was a merchant. He made money by business. He was emotionally distant from his young son, Arthur. His mother was worse. She hated her own children. Gosh. Arthur and his younger sister, Adele, would today be classified as victims of emotional and perhaps physical child abuse. Okay, but let's ask a question here. Who is the source of this information? It's him. We know he's already messed up. And when a person says that an older figure hated them, well, we only seen half the picture. Well, what did you do to possibly be hated, right? Because that is a possibility. There is a behavior that you can do for someone to hate to be around you. Okay? So always keep in mind that there is a transmission problem when someone claims to be abused as a child. Okay? But unfortunately, it's a problem because that would lump into that problem the true stories. Right? All right. Now, Friedrich Nietzsche. And this author's having fun with this. He says, we can hardly even start to describe Nietzsche. Okay? First of all, Nietzsche, his influence on, what does the final say on how to pronounce his name? Is there qira'at in this? Huh? Nietzsche. There's ahruf on this thing, right? On these German names. Porsche, Nietzsche. All right. His influence is indescribable on philosophy. His aphoristic insights have inspired the modern view of humanity. Well, that's a disaster because of what we're going to see. However, the author's right. In a world loosed from the bonds of predetermined values, his is a challenge to say yes to a freely chosen future. Okay. Nietzsche's steady drift into personal isolation and madness was possibly caused by untreated syphilis. Okay. His megalomania and strident declaration that he was the embodiment of philosophical greatness drove everyone away. His legendary personal betrayal and subsequent hatred of Richard Wagner, who was a father figure and the musician, is typical of his disastrous personal life. Now, see, here's the thing. A person could actually truly be a victim, right, of no guidance. Like, no one taught me. I got messed up in life. That's true. And we'll sympathize with you. But don't tell us how to live. Don't tell us anything about reality, okay, because you're not fit for it. And when you give someone a vision of what life is and how virtues are to be, or what virtues are and what's good and what's bad, you're basically telling people how to live, even if you're not saying do this and do that. At times, he believed he was possessed by spirits. I think most people who are into drugs, alcohol, and have mental unwellness can receive a lot of waswas. He sabotaged all relationships that he was in and distanced himself from friends, resulting in him receiving only one Christmas card on his last Christmas. His famous line about women speaks volumes. Are you visiting women? Do not forget the whip. Oh my gosh. And this is the guy that we're going to take. Western nihilism is basically the results of him. Now let's go to Bertrand Russell, described as having brilliant analysis of logic and contribution to modern understanding of math. Bertrand Russell, we're now entering into the 70s here. And I don't know why we skipped Russell. Oh, because Wittgenstein was born after him and died before him. So Russell comes first. He brought philosophy out of its academic closet and broadcast it far and wide. Despite his periodic bouts of depression, continual relationship upheavals, and frequent domestic disasters, he was a superb publicist for the process of thinking. He's referred to as the Voltaire of the 20th century. But Rogers and Thompson write, rational, enlightened ideas did not prevent Russell, who greatly wanted children, from being as disastrous a father and a grandfather as he often was a husband and lover. How far his personal failures invalidate his ideas and how far they merely reflect his own troubled character are far from academic questions. And we say that, again, if you're not moralizing and ethicizing and telling us about the world, then we don't care what your personal life is. For example, a mathematician's equations are right and wrong regardless. An IT person who codes properly, we get the right result, right? Even a surgeon, at some point, even though he's really touching you and getting into your body, but his quality of his work can speak for itself, completely separate from his personal life. But it's when you're getting involved in how we should live, how we should view the world, how we should be ethical and moral, well, just model it yourself and don't write a book. You be the book, okay? So he then says he was his personal failures and dealing with other individuals, as opposed to pontificating about humanity, he could behave with cold callousness, suggesting two fundamental traits, a deep-seated fear of madness and a quite colossal vanity. You know that a lot of, and I think towards the end of his life, he was even accused of raping somebody. I think he went to Berkeley or Stanford, I think Berkeley, and he was accused of groping. You could look that up. The guy is he has issues. Wittgenstein, it is tempting to say, was able to take philosophy to a new level by his sheer intellectual weight. He led off with many extraordinary directions. Although economically very wealthy from his family's steel mills, he was poverty-stricken psychologically. He was an intellectual and a physical bully who did not shy away from browbeating other philosophers, students, and even pushing around school children. I guess when he was a kid. Suicidal, death-obsessed, and probably homosexual, when that lifestyle was a criminal offense, his problem-plagued personal life ranged from allegedly picking up tricks in a public park in Vienna to having hurriedly to leave his school teaching job in order to avoid the wrath of villagers concerned about his beating their children. Oh, that's what they mean, pushing around school children, when he was a teacher. This is all in rural Austria, which was known for its unrestrained use of corporal punishment in school. Wittgenstein's short, violent, and frequently expressed temper was infamous. He vented his spleen on numerous occasions upon friends and foes without discrimination, even threatening Karl Popper with a fire-lace poker during a debate. But philosophy has since found its way out of the rather narrow alley down which he led it, and aspirants to serious thought are no longer required to wear open-necked white shirts, the authors write. And I remember Wittgenstein reading him in philosophy class. I took philosophy as a minor in Rutgers just to see what I have to know what they're saying, because they're always philosophizing and talking about deen and religion and all that. And that's almost like, to me, the opponent school. Christianity, I didn't see as an opponent. Buddhism, I didn't see as an opponent. Judaism, not an opponent. I didn't see any of those religions as serious. But philosophy, I thought, okay, this is where we might have issues. So half of this stuff is nonsense. Half this stuff has no relevance. And the sources of it. When I looked at, there was one philosophy teacher, and she hated religion, and she made me work. In other words, I had to answer these questions. Then I had another philosopher. He was a nice guy, but he was so unclean. That's all I remember thinking about. It's like, well, this guy can't be right, right? This cannot be the right way. This guy is so physically unclean, right? But that was the last philosophy class I took, and that was a nail in the coffin. I was like, okay, but this is your product, right? Of course, now, like, that's no way to judge a product, right? But it was a last straw. All right, let's go to the last guy, Heidegger. Or there's two more, actually. Sartre, too. Produce a monument on us so we can understand ourselves, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to the juicy details here. Unfortunately, Heidegger's thinking cannot entirely be dissociated from his great political folly of supporting Hitler. Okay. And served as a philosophical stooge of Nazis. In Heidegger, the authors here paint a portrait of an essentially selfish and ruthless man. The Nazis to him were a political movement best expressing his basic concept of Dasein, their being. When it served his immediate purpose, he was quick to betray them. Quick to betray his mentor, Edmund Husserl, and his lover, Hannah Arendt. Oh, these are like big names here, right? And his friend, Karl Jaspers. I guess he betrayed them to the Nazis, maybe? Later, he half-heartedly attempted to distance himself from the Nazis. In some ways, Heidegger emerges from the Rogers and Thompson books, perhaps the philosopher who has the most to answer for. Okay, but there are 7 other strong competitors. Sartre transported philosophy from the lecture hall to the cafe, and he died in 1980, making existentialism a movement to be celebrated even by those who understood little of it. Sartre produced literary gems which transcend and illustrate the limitations of the rational obsessive, writing himself into his work. Love him or hate him, he stands as a giant. Yet, he was obsessed. Oh, man, this guy is really messed up. You know what his obsession was? Incest with his mother. What in the world? He hated children, he hated animals, was famous for hypocrisy in his relationships, and known for discarding lovers as much as if they were a waste of paper, and yet continually obsessed with his mom. Dude, man, something's wrong with these people. See, if your ideas don't cure that, you got problems. Now, due to his many excesses, the last one, Michel Foucault. He is the easy target, okay? Certainly he deserves to be celebrated for the boldness of his works and the originality of his ideas and his unflinching eye for the truth embodied in life, society, and especially the power politics and social relationships. His analysis of patterns of thought, the nature of language, blah, 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 and his exploration of madness, sex, and punishment. While certainly not standard fare for philosophers, he brilliantly merges the study of philosophy with history, sociology, anthropology, and psychology. It is still debated whether Foucault knowingly transmitted AIDS to many men through unprotected sex. Sad, too, is his legacy at Berkeley, where he was known among students of the day as the mad French leather queen who whips anyone who will let him at San Francisco gay bathhouses. Whoa. Okay. Rogers and Thompson write, in the final year of his life, discussing the risk of AIDS, he said, Besides, to die for the love of boys, what could be more beautiful? So, like, we cancel people for way less. Like, the whole person, all his books would be canceled for way less than this statement right here, right? But these guys, no, they get a pass.
We have more checks and balances for like restaurants and reviews than for
100%.
philosophy and
That's so true. I mean, if someone said the chef in the back is into boys, dude, I don't know what's on his hands. I don't even want his energy and his vibes coming near my broccoli and my salmon, right? I don't even want his vibes. I'm leaving right away. You know, I don't even eat from places like Chipotle anymore. But I see the figures that they hire back there. I don't want that guy's now this is not like a legal thing or even a true thing, but it's I think, right? I have this, people have vibes. They got energies. There's no doubt people's got energy. I don't want your energy entering into my food, then entering into my body. Forget najasa. That's out of the question. That's like, we're past that. Okay. I don't care what gloves, but you put the glove on with your hand, right? You ever think about that? Okay. Think about that. Oh, he put on gloves. Yeah, but how did he put on gloves? Was he a surgeon? Did someone put it on for him? There is a chain of transmission of gloves back to the hands. Even the surgeon. Oh, the nurse put it on for him. Yeah, but the nurse, she was wearing gloves. Okay, where did she get her gloves from? Right? But in the restaurants, they don't even do that. Even when they wear gloves, you put the glove on yourself. And then you touch the other glove with the other hand. So how is this supposed to make me feel any better?
have you ever seen bathrooms where they tell
Yeah.
the message that
Yeah.
you have to wash your hands?
Yeah. As if that message is going to, that's going to change my mind right there. Right? Yeah. Okay. I love Bill Burr when he said in the end zone, end racism, right? And Bill Burr was like, okay, that sign, yeah, that's what's gonna change the racists, right? But that's a different subject because that's actually, anyway. Point being, a life of reason does not necessarily lead to a reasonable life. Okay, and these are 8 giants, but they are dwarfs of human beings. They're terrible human beings, basically. And these are the 8 biggest giants of our times. Okay. Let's go to another segment we have here. Elephone, open up, please. We're going to read a segment of the Quran first. Very short. Open up to Surah Al-Anbiya, Surah 21, verse 87. Okay. Very good. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وذنوني إذ ذهب مغاضبا فظن أن لن نقدر عليه فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. I'll repeat the prayer part again. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. This prayer is the greatest prayer. It is the best prayer for someone who is in deep hardship, deep waters. And this literally came to a prophet, Jonah, Yunus, who was literally in deep waters, physically in the belly of the body of a whale, who was in deep waters. And remember the man with the whale, the Nun. The Nun means the man of the whale, but it's also his nickname now, the Nun, which is Sayyidina Yunus. When he went off angrily, thinking we would not restrict him. Okay? But then he cried out deep in the darkness, there's no God but you. So that's Tawheed. La ilaha illa anta. Subhanak, tanzih. Inni kuntu min al-dhalimin, istighfar. Repentance. So there's Tawheed, monotheism. There's transcendence of God. And there is seeking repentance. Because transcendent, just because you believe in one God does not believe you can believe in him properly. Okay? Because if you believe in a God who came in the form of a man, or you believe in God, but that God does not have the attributes worthy of worship, then you won't worship him or believe in him. So that's why the word subhanak is an expression of transcendence. It is basically, reject all the false beliefs about God that make him unworthy of worship, such as coming in the form of a man, or having a son, or having a mother, or wrestling Jacob and being pinned, and all, or not knowing something. As we said earlier, the Quraysh, they actually believed that God couldn't, he is not all powerful, that he couldn't resurrect bones. They believed that God was busied by all the prayers of the people, so you need many gods for all the people, so that he's not all hearing, and other such things. Okay, so Subhanak, what it means, and what that word Subhanallah refers to, is transcendent, is God, beyond all these false ideas. So this prayer consists of three things, and it came to Prophet Jonah, Yunus alayhi salam, inspired to him. Allah inspired him to show him and to show all of humanity how to be saved when you're in the depth of darkness. Of course, he said it once, it was sufficient for him, because when it comes from the heart of a prophet who fully understands its meaning, and he's got a purest heart, then once is enough. But for us, we may not have that, so we have to repeat it all the time. So this, you should memorize this and treat this ayah like a small surah that you recite constantly in the prayer after Fatiha. It's very easy. It's shorter than Surah Inna A'tainaka al-Kawthar, almost, I think. But Prophet Yunus was sent as a youth. He was sent to Nineveh, which is the city where Prophet Abraham was born, also known as Ur. And he was told to preach to those people there. And he was a youth. And he went and he preached at the first gate of the city. Then he went to the eastern gate of the city, then the northern gate of the city, then the western gate of the city. And the people just ignored him. And there was idols everywhere. He was disgusted. And because he was a pure youth, grew up, unlike other prophets who grew up with non-believers. No, he was born and raised amongst the Hebrew prophets and scholars. And he's never seen idolatry like this before. He was disgusted. He said, these people are terrible. I'm leave them out. And he, in his mind, this was a good deed. For all of us, that's a good deed. What he did was a good deed. But for prophets have a higher standard. You have to be patient until God tells you. You cannot leave the city until Allah tells you leave the city, like he told Lot, Prophet Lut. Now take the believers and leave the city, then Allah destroyed the city. So he did something that would have been good for all of us to do, leave paganism, but for a prophet it was no good. And he imagined that this is going to be acceptable. So when we say, oh, why did Jonah leave the city? He disobeyed God. No, he didn't disobey God. He did not realize that the good deed that he's doing is not in the right place. It would be in the right place another time. And the Prophet always said, never say, I'm better than Jonah, even though it's true. But what he meant by that is never, because not all prophets are of the same. They're all equal in that we honor them, we respect them, we never say anything bad about them, we believe in them. That's how they're all equal. But the Quran says we preferred some over others. Okay? And the last and final messenger is their greatest one. And he said, never say I'm better than Jonah, meaning never put him down, because Allah cites this in the Quran. Okay? But because of Jonah, we have something amazing, which is this prayer that everybody should latch onto. Nobody should ever you cannot be down for a long period of time. And there's a philosophy which I like, and I tend to think it's true, that depression, it's small sadnesses that never get cured. And they add up one after another that never get repelled from the body, like a tumor. I'm sure every one of us has some bad cells out there, but when they come together, form a tumor. Okay, so that philosophy of depression, and this is the meaning of those who are close to Allah, they never get down, they never get sad, means because when the sadness comes, it does come to them, but never as a depression. That a long state of sadness that has now, I can't even move it, almost like a garage that every time you get some junk and you're cleaning up, you just throw it in the garage, just throw it in the basement. But after a while, that garage, it's so intimidatingly dirty with junk that you can't possibly clean it anymore. You literally need to hire a company, 1-800-GOT-JUNK, to take your stuff away, because you just have so much. It's not physically possible. You would physically fill the garbage bin for the week for the next 3 years to get rid of this junk. And there's a philosophy out there that, or a theory out there, that depression is similar to that. It's micro sadnesses that add up and add up and add up until it's a layer, okay, in which you don't even see the individual sadnesses anymore and the causes of sadness. And the idea of treating one sadness didn't change anything. Just like a garage that's filled with junk, I can't even see what junk is here. I just see like the surface. That's all I see, the surface level. So, and if I was to take this printer and throw it away, and take this old bike and throw it away, nothing changes, right? So oftentimes sadness like that, none of us should suffer from that, by Allah's permission, of course, if we stick to prayers like this. Let me recite it one more time for someone who wants to clip that and recite it. وَذَا النُّونِ إِذْ ذَهَبَ مُغَاضِبًا فَظَنَّ أَن لَّن نَّقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. Next ayah. فاستجبنا له ونجيناه من الغم وكذلك ننجي المؤمنين. This is what gives us happiness right here. We immediately answered him. The letter fa, when you see that in the Quran, means immediately. Wa means and it doesn't say which came first. Thumma implicates sequence, but not immediacy. If he said thumma istajabna lah, that means it could be a month later, could be a year later, could be a day later. But fa, immediately when Sayyidina then Yunus said this prayer, immediately Allah answered him. But here's the beautiful part. This is also how we answer believers. So nobody should ever say, oh, that was only Prophet Yunus. No, all of us. These two ayahs, 21, Surah 21, verse 87 and 88 should be your prayers, and these are so short. You can memorize this by tonight, and you should pray with it all the time. After Fatiha, you recite this. And when you're walking, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin, non-stop. We should never ever leave off this prayer or let time pass without saying it. Let's now turn. Hold on one second. Yes, that's true. How many times would he recite it? 40?
This ayah is once, but then afterwards he recited La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin.
40 times, right? Yeah. While I read the second segment now, you can turn this off, and I'm going to read the last segment for today. Trump's Riviera Gaza plan. This was updated in the Middle East Eye only one day ago. But check if there's a narration on how many times it's sunnah to say La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin, if there is any. And if there's none, then a lot is sufficient. Just a lot. Non-stop say it. Trump's Riviera plan in Gaza is very upsetting. But, I mean, what do we expect? You have enemies. What do you expect? Right? A post-war Gaza plan circulating in Washington seeks to turn the enclave into a Dubai-like revenue-generating hub using mass surveillance, population displacement, and land appropriation. The proposal would bring Trump's purported Gaza Riviera plan to life, complete with world-class resorts, artificial islands, while Palestinians are paid $5,000 per person to leave. A 38-page slide deck of the plan was reported by the Financial Times and then the Washington Post. The proposal was reportedly led by Michael Eisenberg, an Israeli-American venture capitalist, and Liran Tankman. And this is honestly Trump's attempt and these people's attempt to try to rebrand Gaza into the word Riviera, like a beautiful thing. Whereas this is basically a lie, because it's a place of genocide right now. And this is a type of rebrand. And don't say the word again, because that's what he wants you to say. Say Riviera. Keep saying it until, oh, think Gaza's great. It's wonderful. It's going to be beautiful. Where, in fact, it is a location of genocide. Yeah. So their initials were M.E. and L.T., Michael Eisenberg and Liran Tankman. Eisenberg and Tankman were part of an informal group of Israeli officials and business people that first conceived of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in late 2023. Okay. Of course, what their Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, it has a beautiful name, but it's not that. It's basically probably an investment group, and it's colonization. It's American colonization, as you're going to see here. But this proposal takes the GHF as a starting point for a much wider long-term vision that would see Gaza administered by a U.S.-run Gaza Reconstitution, Economic Acceleration, and Transformation Trust, or the Great Trust for short. Now look at how many fake words there are. Lies. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, the people will call bad things with good names. Branding, marketing. The Prophet literally prophesied marketing. Okay? They take a bad thing and give it a good name. Here you have Gaza Reconstitution. No, let's actually call it what it is. And that's when people say, when the Prophet ﷺ renamed Abu al-Hakam, the father, the wise one, into Abu Jahl, the ignorant one. And they said, was the Prophet making fun of him? No, he's actually giving you the true description. The Prophet speaks the truth, and his nickname is false. His nickname is not the wise one. That's his nickname, but he's not the wise one. He's the ignorant one. So calling things as they are. Remember that other video when someone said, my sister married a Hindu man. No, she's fornicating with a Hindu man. Muslim sister married a Hindu man, he said, the guy said. And if a Muslim man was to marry a Hindu woman, he fornicated with a Hindu woman, because it's important to say things as they actually are, not to be mean and slashing and all that, but the truth is better to get solutions than falsehood. Because if we keep saying he married her, it decreases it in our minds. It sort of puts a vanilla coating on it. But the truth is he's fornicating with her. Okay? He is committing zina every single day that he's at home with her. Okay? So here we have to call this what it is. It's the Gaza colony, essentially. And keep in mind this branding and this try to clean our, to change how we feel. Because words impact feelings. And feelings impact actions and thoughts. It's unclear whether this proposal, a first draft of the proposal, which employees from the Boston Consulting Group worked on, is understood to have been completed this April and shared with the Trump administration, which held a meeting last week on post-war Gaza reconstruction. Again, that's another false word, post-war. After October 7th, where is the other army? Where are they? Show us footage of another army. It's a one-way genocide. It is unclear whether this proposal was discussed during the meeting, which included Jared Kushner, of course, and Tony Blair, who both presented their own grand plans for Palestinians over the years. Here are some giveaways. The foundation is temporary. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is temporary. According to this plan, GHF's role is only envisioned to last 6 to 12 months, but also suggests its establishment and operations are the key opening move. The GHF's aid scheme in Gaza has been widely discredited by experts, and hundreds of Palestinians have been killed trying to secure these aid from these GHF sites. In addition to providing Hamas-free secure aid during this time, the proposal also suggests that GHF will offer temporary housing, which it calls Hamas-free humanitarian transition areas, with $10 billion in humanitarian support to establish them. But that's not something that appears to be happening right now. Okay. The HTA system lays the foundation for rebuilding Gazan communities free from Hamas interference. HTAs use a combination of external security, blah, blah, blah. Within a year, once Hamas is dismantled, the plan repeatedly notes, the foundation will be folded into the Great Trust, which is an American colony, essentially. Israel will transfer administrative authority and responsibility in Gaza to the trust, which will be run by the U.S. and under a U.S.-Israel agreement. I mean, the U.S. in America does what Israel wants. Imagine there, right? So ultimately, a U.S. colony, an Israeli colony through the U.S. None, right? And it's an Israel colony through the U.S. Not a trust. Changing the name trust. Let's talk about a trust. If I own something, it's my property, I can make it into a trust, right? If I take some money, I make it into a trust. This money is now follows these desired rules of distribution. You cannot take something that's someone else's and rename it into a trust. I cannot steal from Imran and say it's the Elmasry family trust. You took my money. No, I've made it into a trust. So you took my money still, okay? So again, keep an eye on the words they're using here, because this is not a trust, this is a theft. The trust will then govern Gaza. Is that not the colony, the colonization? Okay, that's literally colonization. For a multi-year period until a reformed and de-radicalized Palestinian polity is ready to step in its shoes. At this point, the plan says Arab and other countries would ideally invest in the trust so it becomes a multilateral institution. So let's all kill Julius Caesar so that the blood's not on one hand. So let's get Egypt, let's get Emirates, let's get Saudi, let's get Kuwait, let's get everybody to pitch in some money here, and you own a building and I own a piece of, you're taking care of that, so the blood's on all of our hands. Yeah. Further down the line, when Gaza is demilitarized and de-radicalized, okay, that's wonderful. Let's put an open-ended condition. No, it's temporary. Temporary until what? Until your whimsical desires are met. The U.S.-run trust colony, will transfer authority to the Palestinian polity. Oh, you're going to steal from us, but you're going to give it back. When was the last time someone stole and gave it back? The last time stuff was given back was when England ran out of money. And they had to give it back, right? Oh, so you're actually going to sell us this one. You're going to steal from us. I'm going to give it back, bro. Okay, really? Oh, man. Who do they think they're fooling? Problem is, I mean, I don't even know what is the point of all this lying and this mocking people's intellects when you're shooting kids as is on live TV and bombing journalists on live TV. Just go and do it. Don't lie to us and give us this mockery of people's intellects. Say that we're going to give it back. And we'll join the Abraham Accords on the normalization agreements between Israel and several Arab countries that were made during Trump's first administration. So my question is, give it back to what? To whom? To the Palestinian polity. Is that a state? What word is that? A polity. Is it a state? What is it? Are you basically saying that that if we can make all the money, actually own all the buildings, and Palestinians can produce some secular, godless, or pro-Israel people. Pro-Israel people could be Muslims too, by the way. Plenty of Zionists. What did we call them before? Crypto-Zionists to choose from. Then you'll create a Palestinian state. Is that what they're saying? But you're going to own all the buildings. The rent will all be paid to you. And you're going to have made sure that they're Zionist Arabs. Then you're going to give it back to them. Is that what you're saying? Because we will transfer authority to the Palestinian polity. It is unclear who and how it will be judged that Gaza has been demilitarized or de-radicalized. That's what I said earlier, just an open-ended, fuzzy goal target. It is also unclear what powers the trust would hold over Gaza after the Palestinian leadership took over. Palestinian leadership, is it leading a state? Is it leading, what is it? There's only one thing that's recognized in the world, states. Gaza, the plan says, might sign a compact of free association with the trust for long-term financial support in exchange for the trust retaining some plenary powers. So we call that a colony, right? We call that like, what do they call those in the books? They call them vassal states. In the old days, you were a vassal state. So I would basically sign up, hey, the Mongols are bothering us over here. Can we become Ottomans? All right, here are the rules. Here's the contract. You use our currency, use our courts. You rule in the name of the Ottoman Empire, and we'll protect you. Okay, we're a vassal state of the Ottoman Empire. This is almost like you're a colony. Then, if you behave and you become Zionists, then we will allow you to be a vassal state, essentially. What kind of a joke is this? Of course, Tony Blair and Jared Kushner, the frauds that they are, and we know what they are. And the thing is, why I say they're frauds, they both have sweet words. They all talk like this, right? They do this nice talk, but in reality, they're sheep in wolves' clothing. They're wolves in sheep's clothing. Okay. Now, there's something that's not reported here, which is that the forced removal of Palestinians and paying nations who have empty swaths of desert and land and jails to take them. That's in The Guardian. Let's take a look at The Guardian. Talked about this. Simon Jenkins says Trump's Gaza colony plan, I'm not going to say the word that they're using here because it's going to get in your head, is an obscenity. Can we really trust Tony Blair, okay, to be involved in this? All right. Blair's leaked presence at the recent White House discussion of Trump's Gaza colony, I'm going to call it, is either good news or outrageous. Good news if he uses influence to terminate this obscenity. Dreadful if he was part of it. Of course, he's part of it. He was part of far worse. Was not the Iraq War a complete charade and a scam that killed millions of people? And he was the biggest proponent of it. The guy, he's with the establishment. The plan was outlined in an incredulous world, to an incredulous world by Trump in February. And it would give $5,000 to each Palestinian to leave. Right. And it promised to pay 4 years of their rent somewhere else and 1 year's supply of food. Oh, okay. So we just need to watch the McDonald's movie to know about these promises, right? Because you know that supposedly Ray Kroc verbally agreed to give McDonald's, the two brothers, something like 1% every year. But we got to leave that out of the written contract because the investors won't like that. But I promise you, and you two brothers, I don't want to say they're fools, but they were fools. The guy literally took over your company and you trusted his promise and you signed the contract. So, Trump is promising 4 years of rent and 1 year's supply of food. Are people dumb? Gaza is then rebuilt as a skyscraper wonderland of artificial intelligence, investment, and tourism. And it will be the second Dubai, producing $400 billion for Western and Israeli developers. Okay, and the scheme's private contractors have named themselves humanitarian trust, now supplying food for the famine-hit territory. Trump said that the Palestinians would be better off living beautifully in another location. Again, you know that his use of words, he knows how to make you feel good about things. Okay, the Americans might one day see a reformed and de-radicalized Palestinian polity ready to step in its shoes. In other words, munafiqs, a munafiq government that can operate a controlled Palestinian state. Okay, and let me think. Do you think Netanyahu would allow that? Of course not. He's a one-state guy. Okay. All parties to any war have a moral obligation to plan for its aftermath. As the principal sponsor of Israel's reaction to the Hamas atrocities, the U.S. is now party to the destruction. Okay. We are party to this. This is a sickening thing to think about every day. And they go on, but same stuff that we talked about before, and essentially arresting and forcibly removing the Palestinians is on the table, and then sending them to places like South Sudan that is in so need of money, but they have such a big country. Final segment for the day is something that I wanted to talk about very briefly, but apparently earbuds are bad for us. And they call, now that there's been time enough to study them, because there hasn't been time. They invented it, and 20 years haven't passed by. Of course, headphones, they are, but earbuds are even more. They're literally in your ear. So there's even more exposure to risk. And of course, time has passed by. So now we can do studies, right? And these studies should be separated between kids whose earbuds are developing versus those who are older when they got earbuds who already developed. But hearing loss is the primary risk, and listening at high volumes for prolonged periods. Earbuds place the sound directly into your ear canal, and the high volumes can overstimulate and damage tiny hair cells, which are called the cilia, in the inner ear. Unlike other cells in your body, these hair cells do not grow back. Once they are damaged, it is permanent. To mitigate the risk, many experts recommend something they call the 60-60 rule. Listen at no more than 60% of the volume for no longer than 60 minutes at a time. Okay. In addition to hearing loss, it causes tinnitus, chronic ringing or buzzing in the ears. It causes a lot of ear infections. It causes exposure to radiation. Okay. So the 60-60 rule at this point is the advice of doctors at this moment in time. Who knows, more studies can come out and make things worse and say that things are worse. So there are now earbuds that don't go in the ear. Let me see this. Earbuds that don't go in ear. And I'm starting to see these open ear earbuds, open ear headphones, also known as. And you can look at it. It's just a matter of time. And now Bose makes it. So they actually don't go inside your ear, and they're way safer to use, apparently and allegedly. Okay. And Bose makes them. If you go to their website, Bose.com, there's open ear is a tab there. Okay. They don't really talk about them, but that you get to see what they look like. They latch onto your ear, but they're outside your ear. I guess that's also good if you need to hear something else. Okay. If you need to hear like someone talking to you, if you're in lecture or something. And that's what they look like. And you can get those if you want to be more on the health side, or you can go and find ones that aren't $300 because these are $300. I'm only going to take 3 questions today because time's running out. And right, everyone, let's get to the Q&A real quick. I'm going to take 3 questions and then pray dhuhr. And then we have to record something, pre-recorded message for Celebrate Mercy tomorrow. I'm on that. Anyone want to be part of Celebrate Mercy, you can go listen to their Rabi al-Awwal, celebrating the Prophet. You know, Shaykh Yasir Fahmi asked a question. We celebrate the Quran all the time. What about the walking Quran? SubhanAllah. You know, there's a saying that if all you had was observing the Prophet ﷺ, that's all you did was observe the Prophet, peace be upon him, and you never opened the Quran, but you read the Sunnah, and then you would actually have an acceptable Islam. But if all you had was the Quran and you didn't have the Sunnah, you wouldn't know how to implement the Quran. He also said that the Prophet choosing death over life is a great mercy. He says, because if he was still alive, in huwa illa wahyun yuha, he would continue to get revelation on everything. The Quran would be this big, and the rules would be so many Okay, that it's actually a mercy that he chose. So when he chooses death, because his death is on Rabi al-Awwal too, same day, 12th Rabi al-Awwal, according to some, that some people say, oh, well, we can't celebrate that day. That's his day of his death. No, that's actually the day of the completion of his perfection too. Because the prophets don't die the way we die. They are guaranteed life in their grave. If martyrs are guaranteed that, and martyrs are followers of prophets, right? You wouldn't be a martyr unless there was a prophet. So clearly, whatever a martyr has, a prophet has. بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. They're alive, being given sustenance in their graves, with their Lord. So his death, the moment of the prophet's death, or the day of his death, is actually the completion of his perfection, because he made the perfect choice at the perfect time. And we say that because prophets are given the choice, their permission is sought before their soul is taken. Unlike us, our soul is just taken. Prophet's permission is sought first, and by him permit, he could have delayed it, right? Sayyidina Musa delayed it. It wasn't a long delay, but it could have been longer. But the Prophet chose at that time perfectly. And that was the right choice, because otherwise it would have been a hardship on the Ummah. If the Quran was so long and the rules were so many, and we wouldn't have the sunnahs of the Sahaba, and on top of that, no one would leave Medina. So by leaving, he signaled to the Sahaba, okay, leave Medina now. Go spread Islam. That's a third thing. The Prophet ﷺ stayed in Medina. Why would he live anywhere else? Medina would just become this humongous city that would keep expanding, and no one would want to live elsewhere. So many wisdoms that the Prophet ﷺ has brought. There are so many prophetic du'as. Do they rank in importance? Says Naba. And the answer is, they rank in importance per situation. So when you're sick, there's a prayer. When you're leaving your house, there's a prayer. When you're in trouble, there's a prayer. When you have an enemy, there's a prayer. So you notice the dua of Yunus, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-dhalimin. He's in trouble with no enemy. It's the ocean and the whale. They're innocent morally. But Prophet Ibrahim's dua, Hasbi Allahu ni'mal wakil, is when you're in trouble and you do have an enemy. That's a difference. So to know which medicine to give at the right time is the best. And if a person didn't know any of this, any remembrance of Allah will suffice you, right? Any remembrance of Allah is good. But it's better to have the most precise surgical dhikr that will get you the result you're looking for. Okay. If head hair falls out in ihram accidentally, is expiation required? And if I'm someone making umrah and hair falls off accidentally, then no. But if you scratched it, then you owe a sadaqah. If you intentionally took it off, then you owe a fidya. Okay. The fist length in the beard is what Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar used to do, which is grab his fist and cut from there. That's what the fist length. And what Malik deemed from that is that is the highest sunnah, to have a fist length beard, but it should never be longer than that. No one knew the sunnah better than Abdullah bin Umar. No one's going to be better than him, okay, from us. And that's what he did. And they spoke ill of someone who grows his beard long. Malik spoke ill of it. Abu Hanifa has a student, I believe, someone in the chain of transmissions of Abu Hanifa, I think maybe even before him, stated that he surprised to see a man of intelligence who allows his beard to keep growing more than that. Fist length maximum that a Muslim beard should be. And it's from the chin, not from the lower lip here. Please come visit Queens College, New York. Yeah, well, inshallah, we'll do that someday. Abid said, will you be at MBIC on Sunday? La. Classes start on the 21st. there's wedding on Sunday, inshallah, that I have to go to. What does it mean that Allah willed some people to be born sad and some people to be born happy? Good question here. Because you see that in a hadith. Okay, that the angels will write your destiny, and your destiny is shaqi or sa'id. Shaqi and sa'id here, happy and miserable, refers to your deeds. Yeah, it's your deeds, it's your actions. Because remember what we said with Uthman on the stream is that a religion just doesn't tell us what to do, it also makes you happy. A religion that in which the people who follow it are not more happy than not, they're doing something wrong in the religion. Sa'ada and felicity is embedded in the religion. That is the natural result. Okay? And so when that hadith says that they're destined to be happy or miserable, it means their deeds. And the result of their deed will be that they're happy or miserable. So it is both. It is the happiness and misery, but it's also implied in that it's their deeds. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to stop here. I'll take one final from Nia Luke. What do you think the idea that Ram and Krishna could have been prophets in Hinduism could have potentially been a monotheistic religion, but it was changed by people over time? Of course, it is a possibility, a lot of possibilities that pagan religions of the past were in fact monotheistic religions that were altered. The Arabs had produced their own false religion. It had no name to it, but a sociologist could have come and given it a name, listed its tenets, okay? But we know that originated with they originate themselves with Prophet Ibrahim. Okay, they themselves say that, okay? And so it is very possible, we can't ever say for sure, but the idea that a pagan religion originated with truth, of course that's not far-fetched. In the time of Noah, what was it? And that was a religion taught to them by Adam and by Seth, and later on prophets in between, such as Idris. They all taught Tawheed and the right religion, but then it was altered by men later and into paganism. So we saw it with Adam, we saw it with Prophet Ibrahim's, with the Arabs, and it's therefore not so far-fetched to be the same case in India, and Allah knows best. وصلى الله وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.